All right. It is noon, so we will get started with our webinar. Welcome everyone to the webinar Safeguard Your Summer, Wandering and Water Safety Strategies. Happy to have everyone jumping on over their lunch hour. There we go. So my name is Mary Lizakowski, and I'm a Coalition Health Director with Foundation for a Healthy North Dakota. It is a nonprofit organization established in 2022 with a mission to promote health and wellness across North Dakota by working at the community level. We continue to expand our statewide coalition to foster collaboration among local communities on common initiatives. By becoming a member of the coalition, you will be the first to receive information about webinars like this one, any other educational opportunities, relevant public health information, legislative news, as well as access to digital advocacy resources and toolkits. A few housekeeping things to cover. Webinar attendees will be automatically muted for the presentation. After the presentation, a link to the recording will be sent out along with an evaluation survey to complete. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat box and we will address them after the presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Katie Wentley, who is the Water and Wandering Program Manager at the Autism Society of America. Katie is passionate about the safety of the autism community using a multi-tiered approach with a focus on preventative strategies. Katie has spent her career teaching, working with, and learning from the autism community in the classroom, the pool, the kitchen, and the gym. Most recently, with the Autism Society of America, Katie developed Safety on the Spectrum, Accessible Aquatics to address critical issues of preventable water-related death in the autism community. This is a gold standard training, increasing education across the autism community and equipping aquatics professionals with the support needed to increase safety for autistics in and near water in local communities. When not working, Katie can be found doing something outdoors and near the water. So welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me in. And thank you to everyone for taking their time to listen in on such an important topic, not only to me, but to the autism community as well. I'm going to make you all larger just so I can see. And you can see the screen, correct? Awesome. So welcome to Safeguard Your Summer. Today, we're going to talk about water and wandering related strategies that we can implement right here, right now. So the objectives for today are learn about the importance of creating and applying layers of protection, which we are all very familiar with, but it can be a little bit more robust and a little bit more scary or daunting when trying to do this in the autism community. And then we're also going to learn how to implement at least 2 safety strategies that can be utilized around bodies of water. And as Mary kindly said, my name is Katie, and I am the program manager for the Water and Wandering program here at the Autism Society of America. Our agenda, very brief. I don't like to spend too much time on the different facets here. I'd rather get into the nitty-gritty of the information, but we're going to set the stage for wandering, really identify the problem so that we can understand the importance of safety around the water, around the home, around the water, and then different safety supports we can enlist within the community. Just very briefly about who we are, the Autism Society of America is the largest and oldest grassroots autism organization in the United States. We have over 70 affiliates within the country, which is really nice that we can have a direct service feeling and impact, but also being a national organization. Our mission is to create connections, empowering everyone in the autism community with the resources to live fully. And I also like to add, and safely, especially under the realm of water safety. And then our vision is to create a world where everyone in the autism community is connected to the support they need when they need it. And that is absolutely critical, because if we can't access the support when we need it, then what good is the support? So just to set the stage about the community in need, it is no secret that the autism community suffers from a very big tragedy of drowning. Disproportionately higher levels of autistic individuals drown in comparison to neurotypical peers. The problem here, even in addition to the drowning, is that most of the drowning statistics are underreported because there's not a consistent way to track identifiers from state to state, county to county. So the problem that we're facing is far larger than we know. The numbers that we do have are frightening. So to know what isn't being reported is even more scary. Even individuals without autism, we're looking at about 4,500 people drowning each year in the United States. And that statistic is applied from the National Drowning Prevention Alliance, which is equivalent to about 11 drownings per day, which is excessive. At least 71 autistic children drowned last year in the United States that we are aware of. Again, with different markers and identifiers, it's very hard to understand from state to state what those true numbers really are, and 192 since 2021. So we're really noticing, even from 2012, an incredible uptick in this post COVID-19 world, where we're seeing far greater numbers of people reported with autism drowning. And we can go into the reasons and whys we think that might happen, but the fact is that it's happening, and we really need to do something together to eradicate this. In 2025, as of June, at least 19 children with autism have drowned. Again, it's very difficult to identify those from state to state. Additionally, unfortunately, a widely accepted statistic is that autistic children are 160 times more likely to drown than their neurotypical peers. And when I read that, it kind of sounds like a fake report, like who inflated this? Who did this? And unfortunately, that is actually very real and on the lesser end. That is a very minimal number because we're finding that it's far greater than 160 times. It's more closer to like that 200 times more likely, which is very scary. 91% of deaths in children with autism under 14 are due to drowning after they have wandered. And approximately 50% of people with autism will wander or have wandered within their lifetime. And we pair all of this with a national water safety instructor shortage. So we're in critical need now that we've talked about all the really sad things. It's just important to know that this isn't a made up problem. It is very, very much prevalent and something that we should all care about, whether we have a direct link to somebody with autism, a family member, or if we're just simply a community person that's curious about the autism community. This is a major problem for all people. So let's identify what wandering is so that we can start to mitigate and understand how we can work against these risks. As according to the CDC, wandering is when a person leaves a safe environment or a responsible caregiver. And we like to make sure that we keep those identifiers in there as safe environment or responsible caregiver to make sure that it is somebody that's leaving a safe person and a person that they are not being abused or something is happening to them where they're trying to flee for their own safety. As we've learned, people with autism are at an increased risk of injury and death due to wandering. And then unfortunately, not only do they wander away from safe places, but they're tragically going towards water in many, many of these instances. Most people are like, okay, so why do they wander? Or, oh, it's the parents' fault or whoever's watching them's fault. And that's an easy thing to say, but until you're in it, you realize that it's not the parents' fault. This isn't 9 out of 10 times, maybe even 9.5 out of 10 times. It is not due to negligence. Wandering behaviors happen under every type of supervision. They happen within seconds. I always think about what it's like to have two young children at home who follow you to the bathroom and do all of the things with you, and you just need a second to wash your hands. Parents of children with autism aren't always afforded that luxury to wash their hands for 5 seconds without the worry of their child fleeing or leaving their home or finding themselves in a dangerous situation. So some of these luxuries, like going to the bathroom for 30 seconds, they may not have because of this risk of their child wanting to leave the home and wander due to a variety of reasons, like biological factors. So we're in the community and I don't want to be here anymore because I forgot my stuffed animal, or I really need to go to the bathroom, but I don't necessarily have the language or communication ability to tell you that I need to go to the bathroom. So I'm just going to leave and go find the bathroom. And the next thing you know, now I'm finding trouble by accident. Or, it's Monday night and we always go to Publix on Monday night, but tonight we're going to Winn-Dixie. a grocery store here close to Florida. So I realize that that may not resonate. But now we're going to a different store on Monday night, and that is outside of my routine. I've never been to this kind of grocery store before, and I want to go to where I'm familiar with. So I'm just going to leave and go where I'm supposed to go on Monday night. It could be due to sensory overload or sensory seeking. So things are too loud, things are too bright, something is irritating me, my clothes are bothering me or itching me. And then it could just be very much dysregulated. I can't calm down. I'm having a difficult time coming back to my homeostasis. A lot of things happen because we're curious or we want to find out what's over beyond that fence. Or I think I heard a bird over there. I wonder what that is. And then there are other personal wants or needs that could cause somebody to wander. So, a little bit about that sensory overload and anxiety. Too much information can cause stress, anxiety, and possibly physical pain, which can result in withdrawal, distress behavior, or sensory meltdown. So, sometimes I think about when you have an impending deadline and you keep getting tasks piled on you, tasks and tasks and tasks. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. And then somebody's asking you 100 questions, and you're just like, my brain, I just need it to stop for a second. This is something that I like to liken to a sensory overload. It's obviously not the same, but when you just get into this heightened state where you can't really calm down because you're so distressed, or if you have young children at home like I do who say, Mom, 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 100,000 times, and you're kind of like, okay, Mom just needs to breathe for a second. That's kind of like, okay, my nervous system is giving me that alert that, Katie, I need to calm down. And I can recognize this. If I'm at a state beyond where I'm able to recognize this and I'm truly starting into that distressed, that might cause me to fight, flight, fright, or freeze, those common responses to sensory overload. And this is something that occurs in everybody, not just somebody with autism, but this does happen to people with autism. It may or may not be something that we understand in the moment, or understand why, but it's something that is causing them the distress, and it's something that is very serious. And as a result of this, this is when they could choose to wander or flee and find themselves into this unsafe situation. That being said, we need to look at how we can be supportive of sensory needs when we can. Can we be flexible about the lighting? Sometimes the fluorescent lights have a buzzing sound that some people can hear, some cannot. Sometimes I know that they give me a headache if I'm sitting in a room for 8 hours a day where it's a little bit overwhelming. Those can be things that maybe we can turn off a light or get a different light. Can we adjust his seating so it's maybe not so close to the door if we know our little friend wants to run out the classroom all the time? Can we adjust the volume, or can we provide noise canceling headphones? Can we provide brain breaks, movement breaks, different ways for somebody to find an ability to regulate themselves? Just different support tools that make sense in the moment and for the situation, but also things to be cognizant of as we're going into the community and doing a different variety of activities. Now, if we are unable to meet those needs of others and they're in this heightened state, I think about, college Katie, who maybe had a boyfriend or two that we're getting into an argument with, and I'm in that flight moment, and I need to leave the situation because I just want to stop the argument, stop the conflict. And so I'm getting in my car, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's probably not the safest neighborhood to be driving around in at that hour, and I need gas. And I'm like, oh well, I'm just gonna get gas, not really realizing that there is inherent risk at stopping at a gas station late at night as a female, probably not in the right state of mind because I'm in the middle of a conflict with somebody. And that is that neuroception, that unconscious ability to assess for risk, danger, or safety because I am dysregulated. I am in this heightened crisis moment for me. It's kind of outside of that realm of self-awareness. And then it changes when I'm in moments of distress. Like, Katie, that's not in crisis or in conflict, knows my shot probably shouldn't stop at the gas station at 2 a.m. by myself. But in that moment, I needed gas and I didn't really care because I'm so distressed and dysregulated. And this contributes to that increased risk for accidents or emergencies or things that maybe happen that you're like, I wasn't expecting that to happen for that person. Why did this happen? Why did they do that? So these are things to really consider. And I try to put you on this journey with me and understanding how this makes sense to somebody that maybe doesn't have autism, how that can happen. That seems so out of character. In addition to that neuroception, if they're wandering towards water, they may not be in the moment of thought where they can consider the dangers or those consequences. Like the water, is it safe water to swim in? Is it a canal? Is it a creek that we shouldn't swim in? Is it cold outside? Is the water itself cold? Where is the temperature? Can I get hypothermia? Is there a current or a rip current, especially if you're, by the ocean, or just different things? The depth, if I can't stand, if I don't know how to swim, all of these things play a part. But because I'm in this dysregulated state, I'm not considering those dangers. I'm just trying to meet that need in the moment right away to get that need met, not realizing I'm putting myself at further danger. And then additionally, if there's a communication barriers can pose an additional risk in this situation, because I can't communicate to you, because I'm so dysregulated. Hey, I need a break. Hey, please give me space. Hey, I need to go sit over here for a second, or I need headphones. So now I'm just going to go meet that need myself because I can't get the words out to tell you and find danger. The next question that we get often is why water? What is it that water does? So we're going to examine the sensory reasons why, and then also the scientific principles of water as to why somebody would be attracted. First, from the sensory standpoint, the sound, the feeling, the pretty visual of it. Sometimes we see neighborhoods that have fountains with lights in them, and they're so appealing and it's beautiful, it's calming. I think about if you're going on vacation to like Jamaica, how wonderful and relaxing that sounds to be in the water. It's gentle. And then also it's that deep pressure that can be felt in the water. There's also an enjoyment piece. I love to swim. It's very soothing. You can get some physical energy out. You get the sensory input. There's also ways for socialization in the water. And then when looking at elopement or wandering or escape, it can be quiet, dark, hidden, away from those crowds if I'm trying to flee from something that's overstimulating or loud. So it's again another safety point, sensory safety point for them to eliminate those things that are causing distress. From a scientific standpoint, there are three principles of water include buoyancy, resistance, and that hydrostatic pressure. So buoyancy is just, it allows you to be less weight bearing. You think about floating in the water and how relaxing it is to take that deep breath and float in the water. It's instantly calming. You put your ears in the water and everything's kind of level for a second. Resistance, I often think about, as a little girl when we'd play and splash, you'd make a different splash if my fingers were wide or my fingers were pushed together, and that provides that feedback instantly to my fingers, to my body. And that can be really reinforcing, especially for somebody that's seeking that sensory need. And then the hydrostatic pressure. So that's what feels like a hug or a sensory blanket. You may have seen somebody with autism diving all the way down to the bottom of the water, of the pool, or wherever. And that's because the deeper that they go, the more of that pressure you feel. For me, the deeper I go, my ears hurt. But for somebody that might be a little bit more sensitive to pressure, or to sensory, that pressure feels really good. It actually allows them to be more in a regulative state. So they may be seeking that regulation through the pressure that the water provides them as well. So there's lots of different reasons. And people with autism have reported a lot of different reasons as to why they're drawn to water, and peace being one of them, and that sensory seeking being another common one that I have seen. Okay, so we've talked about wandering, we've talked a little bit about why water, but let's talk about the things that you can do today that can improve the safety of your loved ones, because there are things that you can do, and you are that front line person here. And I tell you these things not so you're fearing the water, it's just more that we have a level and understanding of respect for the water and know ways that we can safely interact with it and help our loved ones safely interact with it. So first, I think it's important for caregivers or loved ones to identify wandering triggers. Even if your loved one has not wandered yet, a wandering trigger is something that elicits that response. If they've wandered in the past and oh, anytime that we have a lot of people at the house, Johnny gets very dysregulated and he wants to retreat or he wants to leave. If I go into large crowds, Sarah wants to retreat. She wants to leave. She's showing me signs of distress. If your loved one doesn't wander or hasn't wandered yet, are there instances that you can take note of that you are seeing this distress. I personally don't really like a lot of crowds. I don't love Disney World because there's a lot of crowds. That causes me a little distress. And that's something that I work through. We all have the things that, we don't really love to do. Going to Costco on a Sunday when everything is so busy, not an ideal situation for me. We do it, and we plan mentally for this, but there are things that we can all kind of examine and one another. Okay, this might elicit this response or this distress. So I think understanding what that is and being able to identify it is going to help you try to eliminate or alleviate some of those instances where somebody would want to wander. And the trigger is not always negative or distressing. Going to Costco on Sunday isn't negative. I'm getting what I want. I just might be playing bumper cars with shopping carts or waiting in longer lines. And they can be sensory related. It can be related to a past experience. In this example, previous times I've gone to Costco on a Sunday, I've waited in line forever. We've been, in parking lot wars and trying to find a parking space and just different things. They could also be fear-based, and it's important to note that what you deem as something that they should be fearful of and what they think they should be fearful of may be very different, but they're both very real. And so that's something to consider. I think about little kids that are afraid of monsters under their beds. No, there's not a monster under your bed. Adult Katie knows this, but child Katie didn't, and that was a very big, real fear for me. And so that's another thing to consider, that these fears may or may not be something that you understand, but they are very much real. And then the triggers can also be in relation to a tangible. Maybe they went to a swimming pool before and they had so much fun and they want to go have that much fun again. Or maybe they went to Costco before and they got hit by a shopping cart, so they don't want to go again. So just different things that may have happened to consider. And if you're not able to identify a wandering trigger at this moment or a trigger for somebody in this moment, observe their behavior and watch for helpful clues. A helpful clue might be putting their fingers in their ears, any sign of distress, vocalizations, maybe some sensory or stimming, just different things that might suggest, hey, they may not be feeling their best right now. This could be something that they find stressful. The next is the importance we've assessing not only the triggers, but the wandering risks. So these are external to the person who wanders, and they include environmental considerations. So an event with an open water that's maybe not fenced in, I would be on high alert there. I need to make sure that we're watching Amy because there's a large event that she doesn't like, but we have to go to, and there's a big pond and the pond is not fenced in. So that would definitely be a risk in my brain. Events with a lot of people, high traffic areas, wooded areas, all can be posed as a risk. To identify potential risks, you need to consider their triggers and assess your common environment. So are there things at home, school, the grocery store, things that could pose a danger to your loved one's safety? So outside of our grocery store here, we have two ponds, one on either side. If I know that my son doesn't like to go to the grocery store and he likes to leave the grocery store, I need to remember that there are two ponds outside of that grocery store that if he does wander, that could be a place that he goes. It could also just be, okay, I need to make sure that I'm on my P's and Q's and that's on the forefront of my brain when we do go to the grocery store. So identifying triggers and risks is the first step to your individualized wandering prevention strategies. Obviously, this will be very different from one person to the next, but globally speaking, once we can identify a trigger, caregivers can implement a range of safeguarding support to minimize this risk. So the first thing I like to ask is this trigger or risk avoidable or unavoidable? Now, we don't want to live our lives differently. We can't shelter everyone from everything. But if it's something that we can avoid and teach to, giving that person that respect and dignity and teaching them the skills to manage certain things that cannot be avoided. And is this something that will be encountered throughout their life? Whether we like it or not, we have to, I guess we don't have to go to the grocery store anymore because we can use Instacart or something like that. But there are certain things that we need to do, like going to the doctor or things that are going to be encountered throughout life that we can't really get around, but we can provide coping strategies and management around. And if something cannot be avoided, let's consider how we can implement support strategies or different ways for somebody to feel supported in those situations so that they're not feeling dysregulated or not wanting to wander or find themselves in something that poses a risk. So now that we've set the stage for wandering and kind of, okay, these are our triggers, these are our risks, how can we look at our home and try to add some safety strategies within our home? So layers of protection, this is something that is pretty much shared very broadly and globally, but these are safeguards that should act as a method of prevention. There's not a one size fits all, and it should not be the sole thing that we rely on. I like to think about having multiple layers of protection in addition to good supervision. There are pool alarms or lake alarms, things like that, door and window alarms or chimes. These can range from low tech or high tech. My brain likes to use the good old fashioned low tech ones because if the power goes out, or a weather emergency or whatever that might be, I can rely on the battery, the good old Energizer Bunny battery to alert me when somebody's opened the door or the window. Another side note is in weather or moments where the weather is unpredictable, that is a key time for somebody that might need or feel the need to wander. That would be because it's chaotic, it's scary, I don't know what's coming, my routine is off. I think about in Florida here, we have hurricanes, obviously. So that's very scary for all people involved. And we don't know what's coming, or we don't know the damage that's going to happen. We're losing power. It's chaos. Everyone's feeling that stress. So is that person with autism. So I like to really rely on the good old fashioned low tech ones. One, because they're more accessible. And then two, in case the power goes out, you have a snowstorm, something like that happens, you're not going to hear that door open. Fences and physical barriers are great. A lot of people that I know are kind of like Houdini and they're able to figure out a way to get through those fences or gates, but that's why we like to have multiple layers of protection so that we can slow that process down. Self-latching pool fences are phenomenal. Those are the ones that open and they close rapidly right behind you. So that helps to make sure if you're in a community pool that has a community pool, people often don't close the doors behind them. Having a self-latching one kind of solves that problem for them. And then of course, locks. I am not the fire marshal, and the fire marshal probably doesn't like the way I have my own house set up, but I think safety needs to be thought of in that regard. Like I had mentioned, I have two young ones and a pool in our backyard, so we have lots of probably not fire marshal approved locks just to make sure that everyone stays safe. And that's something, a real thing that you may need to consider for the safety of your family. Very briefly, locative technology is something that you can consider. The tracking device that helps locate individuals, that's wearable. They have different kinds of technology. They also have a low tech and a high tech versions of these. Some that use a radio frequency like Project Lifesaver. There's also global positioning systems, the GPS systems. Sometimes you find people using Apple AirTags, there's Angel Sense, there's a variety of different technologies on the market right now. And it just depends in terms of your region, what might be suitable for you. Sometimes GPS only goes so far. And again, if we're losing power, that may not be a benefit to you. And then another thing to consider, and some devices are waterproof, but not all are effective in water. I've heard recently that people are using Apple AirTags as tracking devices, and I believe Apple's even put a statement out like they're not supposed to be tracking devices. Something to consider with that is those aren't waterproof. So in an event of an emergency where there's water involved, that is not a viable option because it no longer works. In some instances, locative technology can reduce the search times and increase the likelihood of a safe recovery. Again, it's not a one size fits all, and it's not a one option and I'm good and I'm done. This is one of many things that can be included or should be included depending on the needs of your family. And it's very important for me to make sure that I share with you that the use of locative technology is a very personal choice for each family and individual. While it can enhance safety for individuals at the risk of wandering, it has to be a very comprehensive, layered plan where everybody is consenting and privacy and autonomy concerns are addressed. And they should always have consent and really look at look at it through the lens of least restrictive and person-centered, and then always make sure that your information is protected if it's shared. And that if it is shared, it's only for search and rescue purposes. So those are things that you should investigate, but we always preach that it needs to be the least restrictive, person-centered with full consent. Additional protective supports that can be used are visuals. Some people really like to use stop signs on doors. Sometimes that's effective. Sometimes that's not effective. As a child, that would not have been effective for me. I see stop, I'm like, what's that gonna do? And, especially as a teenager or something like that. But sometimes it is effective for some people. Using visual, physical boundaries can be effective. Here's the area where we can jump up and down and run and move, and then here's the area where you're expected to sit and attend an event or some sort of activity. We can use choices. So do you want to take a bath now or take a bath in 20 minutes? Either way, you're taking a bath, and that's provided them a choice, especially if bath time is not something they like. Now they're a little bit in control of their destiny, but you're still getting that main objective of them to taking a bath getting done. Another strategy we can use are social narratives. And that is just basically, and I have an example down the line, setting the stage for what somebody's going to do. So we're going to our swim lesson today. Today I'm going to swimming lesson. My instructor will be so-and-so. I'm going to wear a bathing suit and I'm going to have fun. It's just really outlining what exactly they're going to do, who they're going to be doing with their expectations, how they may feel. And it just really helps them to understand what's to come. Social stories are not just great for people with autism, they're great for all people. I think about, going to the dentist. I am not going to go to the dentist and just open my mouth and say, okay, hey, no, I need to know if I'm having a root canal today, you need to tell me. And so I know what to expect. I may not be happy about it, but at least I know that I can expect those things and it's not just a teeth cleaning today. And it's just, the same goes for all people in that sense, that they need to know what to expect so that they can be successful. Don't want to spring something on somebody like that. The next thing we can do is create, practice, and maintain an updated emergency safety plan. And I'll show you an example on the next slide and give you a QR code so that you can scan a safety plan. Getting to know trusted neighbors. So if you have neighbors that you trust, it's really great for them to know that you have a loved one with autism and that this is what they may see. If they see something funny happening or if they see them out and about by themselves, this is what who they need to call, how they can approach them. And then if you can introduce your loved one to them so that it's not as scary if they are approached by them in an emergency, that might be helpful. But again, if they're trusted people, and that's something that you can determine. And then we'll also examine different water safety strategies, which we'll talk about in just a second. Another piece that will be really helpful, especially around the home, is identifying all bodies of water near the home or places that you frequent, especially if you have somebody who wanders. And this is important to do in a moment of non-crisis. If you're finding yourself in an absolute tragedy where your loved one has wandered, I can't speak for you, but I don't think that your brain's going to be able to identify all of the bodies of water close to your home in this moment of sheer panic. So if you can have a list, okay, we have a retention pond behind the home over here, 2 doors down, there's a pond or a lake. Okay, we have a boat over here, just different things that you can outline in a moment where we're not in crisis so that should that happen, hopefully it doesn't, you're able to say, okay, this is where we need to go. And that sets you up perfectly for that wandering emergency plan. So we did number one, we are identifying and assessing those triggers for wandering, right? We talked about those. And then we're going to make that plan. And if you see, we're going to, in that plan making, who's going to be calling 911, who's going to alert any of your key stakeholders, mom, grandma, aunt, uncle, and then identify those places where the person's going to wander and those bodies of water close to where you frequent. So the home, the school, anything else that you may go to. And then who is going to search those identified bodies of water and in what order. So this is helpful to have on hand, not in a non-moment of crisis, so that God forbid that happen, we can completely implement that plan as flawlessly as possible. The one thing that I think is important to note is, um, if you're a party search of 1 please call 911 and check water all at the same time. The more quickly you call 911, the better the outcome. But also checking water, not leaving a lot of time in between in that notice of them missing and those possible water sources. Another thing that was shared with me by a police officer is that if possible, it's great to check water. It's even better if we can station somebody by that water, because just because we checked it at 5:01 and moved on to the next place, we don't know if at 5:05 Johnny made it to that place that you'd already checked off the list in his journey of wandering, which I thought was pretty interesting. We don't always have those resources where we can put a person at every location, but if you do have that ability, that would be something to consider. And then making sure that you fine tune and adjust and modify the plans. Obviously, if you move, as a child gets older, their interests might change, the places you frequent might change. So just making sure that that's something that's kept pretty up to date. And then if you scan the code, you can also access this wandering emergency plan. All right, so those are some of the things around the home specifically. We're going to talk a little bit about different things that we can do around the water. We talked a little bit about it, but looking at water safety strategies from 3 different rungs, including supervision, skill building, and then safety and equipment. And we'll dive deeper on each of these. So I'm not going to waste time reading them off to you. In terms of supervision, the common term that you've likely heard are water watchers, where you have somebody that's designated an adult to watch and supervise the water, really with the emphasis on supervise. You don't want to just watch, you want to really be engaged in that act of supervision. They, in a perfect world, they would have a specific water watcher identifier. My friends, our family friends here, we like to make it a little bit silly so that it's very clear to all people who is the water watcher. So we have a silly hat that they wear, and then that's how you know, like, I'm wearing this silly hat, so I know I am responsible for this water and the children and everybody swimming in it. But so does everybody at this birthday party. They know that Katie's now in charge of the water. And this should be done in time increments, really about 15 to 20 minutes, to reduce supervision fatigue. And then also so that water watcher knows, yes, you can go mingle and have fun and visit with other people when it's not your time. So you're not feeling like the entire party you're on guard. Distractions need to be absolutely eliminated. Phones should not be in hand unless it's kind of tucked away in the event of an emergency type thing. But if there are other people, they should be the ones with the phone. And then also they should be sober. They should not be drinking or doing anything that could alter their ability to supervise. The next very safety practice is swimming in a guarded area. I always like to think about Michael Phelps. We would think he's not going to drown. We hope he's not going to drown. He's one of the best swimmers in the world. But should something funny happen medically, or should he bump his head, or just something go awry, he could also drown. Nobody is drown proof. So swimming in a guarded area is always best practice, regardless of your swimming ability, where lifeguards are present. And if that's not able to happen, to swim with a buddy, and never swimming alone, because of those medical emergencies that could happen that we don't know about. Obviously, best practice would have a lifeguard, a water watcher, and you're swimming with somebody. And I understand that that's not always feasible, but really making sure that the children are never swimming alone and without somebody watching them that's capable. In terms of skill building, especially for people with autism, we really like to have structured water entry routines. This can be customized to them, but keeping that routine is also something that feels good. That's familiarity that taps into some of the things that somebody with autism may need and to feel comfortable. Asking for permission and an invitation before entering the water, and then having that specific routine before they are given granted to the water. So they have to sit down on a lounge chair. They need to do clap their hands 3 times and then say, "Hey, mom, can we go in the water now?" Just some sort of process to slow it down so it's not a dart into the pool or dart into the lake. And I know that sounds silly, and it will take a little bit of structuring in the beginning, but staying with it and continuing to reinforce that, is going to be really, really successful for all people, regardless of their level of support needs. It'll just be very good and structured. And then have that same routine when leaving the pool. You know, it doesn't have to be the exact same, but when entering and exiting the pool, it needs to be something that they can expect that same routine for. Hey, Joey, 5 more minutes till we get out. 3 more minutes till we get out. Okay. 1 minute. Now it's time to get out. We grab our towel, we shower up, whatever that routine is, but keeping that consistent every single time. We also have safety checklists and visuals, especially for those that appreciate and do better with visuals. Those are available, and I'll show them to you in just a second as well. Having specific swim attires. Some people with autism really like to have the sameness. So if I have somebody that likes that, I can say, okay, we're gonna swim in our yellow shirt, and that's the shirt that I wear every time I swim, or I wear yellow every time I swim. And that might also help you as a parent, loved one, educator. Uh-oh, Joey just put that yellow shirt on. I think that's his way of telling me he wants to go in the water, which could be that precursor behavior and letting you know, hey, I want to go swimming, especially if he may not have the ability to communicate that to you effectively. Um, and then really highlighting when we go swimming, we wear our bathing suit. And hopefully that sticks to that rule governed mentality so that if I am wandering, I'm not swimming because I'm not wearing my bathing suit. We hope that that happens. That's not obviously a foolproof plan, but it could help somebody, especially if they're more rule governed. And then we know that somebody that is actively enrolled in swimming lessons, their likeliness of a positive outcome if they enter the water without supervision increases. So swimming lessons are always a good thing. Safety lessons, it doesn't have to just be swimming. It can be safety lessons too if you're not able to find swimming lessons near you. And then it's very, very important to find an effective and appropriate instructor for the learner, which is a very difficult feat in some areas, especially with having a national water safety instructor shortage and having more and more people with autism find the need for swimming lessons. But it's important to find one that is suitable for you and your learner. These are part of those visuals, the water safety checklists. Some of them are examples of your social narratives. So this is a caregiver water safety checklist. So this is what they need to know what to do. And then this is also an individual water safety checklist, and then different things for being safe near water. So this is an example of one of those social narratives. And at the end, you'll see a QR code and you can access all of them as well. There's several, and there are a couple that are translated too. Additionally, we like to have this for parents as a magnet, if possible, or stapled or pinned on the fridge in some way, just so you have like a little checklist for at home. You know, different things that we can do within the home to keep loved ones safe, and then away from the home, and then how to build that foundation. And this is really just that summary of all of the things that we've discussed today. So I'm not going to belabor the point and read them all aloud to you. But if you want just this, you can scan to download just this resource. It's really helpful, especially if you put it in a place where you see it every day. You're like, oh goodness, oh, I heard that detector, the battery needs to be replaced. And that might serve as a reminder. Okay, we need to replace that battery. Or, oh, we're going to a new movie theater. You know, let me check this out first on Google Maps or something like that. The next piece of advice is in regard to safety and equipment. It might sound silly, but it's very important if you're going to a pool to locate the pool pumps and learn how to turn them off in case of an emergency. Because there's a law that came to be because of this called the Virginia Graham Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act, where she actually was getting caught by one of the whirlpool jets. Her hair was caught and she got trapped. And because they couldn't untrap her, she drowned. If they knew how, and this was something part of as a result of this act, they had said that if they had known how to turn off the pool pump, we would have been able to save her. I believe they were at a friend's house. So I know that sounds kind of silly, but if you can identify where that pool pump is, how to turn that off. Part of this Pool and Safety Act is that some of those the entrapment covers have been replaced, but if it has not been replaced yet, just be mindful of it. It's also something to just be mindful, especially if somebody that's diving on the bottom of the pool by the drain. We don't know if a piece of jewelry can get caught in it, hair or hair ties, any of the things that could pose a risk. So being able to release some of that pressure will be helpful for them. And I say that not to scare you, but it's just to educate you, because it is very frightening. The next thing to consider is having a properly fitted life jacket. There are different, we obviously want a United States Coast Guard approved life jacket, and then there are different measures for fittings. There's a whole how-to on our website as well that you have access to that, if you again, if you scan the code, you can get to, so I don't waste time showing you all of the different points for the life jacket, but it is available for you if you're interested. And then the last thing about equipment is putting enticing items away after use. So if you know that Jerry really likes cars, we're not going to leave the cars that he likes to play with in the pool close to the pool's edge so that he's not enticed to go in the pool. I also like to move pool furniture away. So even if you do have that pool gate around your pool, we don't want a chair close by where they can stand on the chair and hop over the fence or hop into the pool. Just different things to think about. We don't want to entice somebody into the water. Same with the lake. If you know that they really like to use the noodle by the lake, let's put the noodles inside away from the lake, or just different ways it's not going to serve as a reminder, like, hey, let's go in the pool and entice them, or into the water and where they're feeling enticed to do so. Lastly is the wandering support in the community. So we've kind of talked a little bit on each of these, but really preparing the loved ones for what to expect when they're going into the community, especially if it's something that they may not like, or you might know that there's a large crowd of people. Let's identify where they are going, how long they'll be there, who will be there, rules, guidelines, if there's like a schedule or visuals that you can provide them so that they know, okay, first we're going to go to the bounce house, then we'll go to the petting zoo, we'll eat, and then we'll go home, whatever that might be, so that they know, this is coming. Ways for them to communicate their needs and wants is very important. We all have needs and wants, and they all should be expressed and listened to. So that's no different. And then support strategies for feelings, so that they can communicate to you. If you know that they really like a specific fidget, especially when they're feeling anxious, can we bring that with us? Or if they love SpongeBob and they have a stuffed animal SpongeBob, can we bring him with us so that in that moment where I'm feeling overwhelmed, I do feel supportive, or supported. And then, of course, prepare those support strategies for their common triggers that you've been able to identify. And then anybody that's with you on this outing, mom, dad, grandma, aunt, friend, whomever, just communicate. It's always good to have these strategies communicated to them so that everybody's on the same page. The last thing you want to do is have the aunt tell Johnny something different than mom told him and then cause a little bit of a scuffle or him to be dysregulated because mom said that we would leave, but aunt said we're not leaving, and you don't want to, cause friction. Last but not least, search considerations, just things to know at the top of your brain. God forbid something happen. What are the closest areas of water? We've talked about that like 3 times. As you can tell, it's very important that we know these things so we know where to direct people. Do they have a locative device? Where does the person like to go or gravitate to? I had an old student that every Saturday at noon, he went to the movies with dad. Every Saturday at noon. Dad said, hey, buddy, I got called into work. We can't go to the movies today, but we'll go tomorrow. That was not good enough for him. Mom's like, but you can have the iPad. It's fine. You love the iPad. He graciously took the iPad to his room, went to his room, snuck out the window, took his bike, and went to the movie theater 8 miles away from him. He was missing from home for a couple hours. Finally, the police officer said, where would he normally be? And mom goes, oh, the movies. They went to the movies, and there he was. He was watching the movie that he planned to see that day. Thank goodness he was fine. But these are things that, like, if you can think of right away. And he crossed several lanes of busy roads and traffic, and I don't know how he managed, but he did. Luckily, he was fine. But these are things that, if we can consider right away, it could eliminate tragedy. And then what will elicit a response from the missing person? I unfortunately was part of a search and rescue for one of my previous students, and he had a favorite song. So we were playing his favorite song to see if he was hiding in a crevice, would that cause him to come out from his hiding, knowing that his safe song or somebody that knew him was close by. And then does the person have medical conditions that could pose an additional risk? So, do they have a seizure disorder that could contribute to something if they're already missing, or are their medicines or their side effects, just different things to consider that should be known to somebody that's helping in that search and rescue. And then best point, happiest point of these, facilitating that community engagement during non-emergencies. So if you have the ability to, like we had talked about, meet your trusted neighbor or engage with police officers or somebody in a positive way and you feel comfortable doing so, can we do that so that God forbid something happen, your child's a little bit more able to identify that this is a person in uniform, but I don't need to be afraid. That's my friend. And again, that'll speak to what you're comfortable with, and I know that as we navigate different climates nationally, that might not be always suitable. Final slide, and this is how I like to end every one of our presentations is please, in the event of a missing person, always check water first. Call if you're one of one with your phone while checking water. A lot of times as we're doing our different researches and studies, we're finding that people are wandering not even 500 yards from home to water. So please, please, please check water first. And that is what I have for the presentation. And I'd love to open it up to questions.
Thank you so much. Yes, I will just get our QR code up on my screen quick.
Oh, here, you want me to stop
Yeah,
sharing?
yeah, be great. And then let's see. All right. Okay, as we move into questions, here is the QR code you can take. It is an evaluation survey. We have one response from Safe Kids in Grand Forks from Karma Hansen. Great presentation. Thanks, Karma. Uh,
I love Safe Kids. We work with Safe Kids, local to me and then also globally. What a wonderful organization.
I know they are. And they have a few different areas in North Dakota with some chapters. And so they're just, yeah, so much great information. I learned a lot. So I really appreciate this, all the information, and also just kind of really going in depth of like what is the water factor? Like why are they is that community drawn to the water? And I totally get it now. Because I love water as well, you know. And so that was just really interesting. I really appreciate all the information that you provided.
I'm happy to go more in depth, on a different day. I was trying to keep
Yeah.
it kind of surface level, but while also
Mhm.
giving good context so all of you could understand without, me belaboring the point. It is my favorite topic to talk about and educate people on. So if you ever find that you want to go more in depth, I'm happy to.
Yeah. So since there aren't a lot of questions popping up, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you could think about like what is your most common question you get when it comes to, whether it's the wandering or the water.
A lot of the questions, most people ask why water? Why water?
Okay.
That one 9 out of 10 times, that's what they say, and then they also say, why are they wandering, period? Who
Hmm.
wants to leave? Why would you do that? And I often, you know, it's hard to say. So that's why I like to take people on that journey of crisis or having like a confrontational argument with a partner or maybe a boss where you're really feeling overwhelmed and dysregulated. Um, for people to understand, because I think it's safe to say, and I know I've gotten to the point where I'm like, just stop the noise, like
Hmm.
I can't handle this anymore. And while I don't know for certain, just based on different advocates, self-advocates have I've discussed this with, that seems to be a very similar feeling of like, this is why I have to leave. This is why I need this out. I need it now. And I'm not thinking about the consequences of what I'm doing because I just need a way. So people ask that a lot. And that when I kind of dove deeper, that made a lot of sense to me because I'm like, oh, I do that all the time. I
Hmm.
don't care, or I've reflected on times when I've done that. So that happens. Sometimes people blame the parents a lot, and that one hurts because that's really, if you examine the instances where this has happened, that's it's not a case of negligence at all.
Hmm.
And so I've kind of tried to make it my mission to rewrite that narrative because it's very easy to point fingers when you don't know. And it's not a product of bad parenting or any of those things.
Sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, your examples that you gave just really made me reflect on myself and like, oh yeah, I get it. So Really appreciated those. Oop, did I just unshare?
It's just no longer a large screen,
Oh,
and I
well,
can, if you
go
want
back.
me, I can give this that large. I think all of those QR codes should have given you everything. I have a global QR code. I think that will go to like a big packet, but I can also kind of link them to you, Mary, in an email for
Oh,
anybody that may want them.
that would be great, because we will send out the recording and any links, we can send those out as a resource. So that would be super if you could
Yeah, we have
provide
a
those. Oh,
couple drowning and wandering like separate bundles. So if there's a different avenue you'd like to peruse more information on,
mhm.
so I'll give you both of those. And then the website has a lot as well. And then if you need social stories, we have some global ones that you can take and customize for, how to ask for permission to go in the pool, how to ask or tell somebody that I want to leave. So just some different things that some of our experts have created that I'd be willing to share if anybody would like.
Wonderful. Okay, well, with no other questions, I think we can close it out. So thank you again, Katie, for this wonderful presentation, just full of so much great information. And to all who could attend, to stay connected with us, you can follow Healthy Nodak on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Foundation for Healthy North Dakota on LinkedIn. And we will also send out Katie's information along with resources in case you would like to connect with her personally. And also to join the coalition, you can just visit the link to stay aware of future webinars and updates. And then also the QR code and Karma, yes, we will send out a link to the recording, and it is a shareable link because it is on our YouTube page. So yeah, this will be housed on our website, and so anyone can share the link and whatnot. So, all right. All right, I think that's it. All right. Thanks, Karma. All right. Thank you, Katie. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.